But if you do have a question that you want to ask out loud, feel free to unmute yourself. All right, so with that, I'd like to introduce our presenter today. Pamela Jo Wilson is the ESOL Curriculum Support Specialist and Adult Education Teacher with Palm Beach County Schools. And she's also a trainer who has presented at this topic and others across the state and nationally, including our very own Florida Literacy Conference. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Pamela.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving up your time on this beautiful Friday morning or afternoon to spend with us. It's really exciting to be here with you. All right, I'm hoping everyone's hearing me fine. If you could nod for me, please, Nicole, that would be great. Excellent, excellent, thank you. All right, so we're here to talk about Google applications for improving digital literacy in our IET world. I'm grateful to Nicole and the people, the folks over there at Florida Literacy Coalition for providing this platform for all of us adult educators. And it is such a privilege for me to serve you all. So I'm very happy. And I also want to take this platform to say thank you for the essay book competition annually. Our students love those. All right, so my name is Pamela Jo Wilson, just like Nicole said, and this is actually from my Twitter and describes me in full. I couldn't find another way to describe me. My message on any platform that I have, I want to take the opportunity to just blast this out there, is love. In the world that we live in right now, we need more love. So I just want to put that out there. That's my universal message. And now we're going to dive into what we're here for today. Thank you. All right, so how are you feeling? How are you feeling right now? I want you to utilize that chat box that Nicole just talked about. All right, I saw a thumbs up from Nancy. Are you anxious? Are you like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm in for with this thing here. I hate technology. I don't know. Or angry, I could be doing something so much better with my Friday afternoon. Why am I here? Sad, maybe you know that what we're talking about with the world situations has got you in your feelings, and you're like, I see someone say I'm in a sugar high. I'm always on a sugar high, you know, and you may be feeling a little down, or you're like, meh, so come see, come sa, so, whatever, nothing in particularly. Or you're feeling good, like the little green guy, or like the super green guy. You're feeling great. Thank you, Michelle Antonio. Well, wherever you are today, if you're anywhere below the light green line, I'm hoping that by the end of today's session, we will move you right on up into those green guys' company so that we can all have a great party up in that area. All right, so I'm going to be doing this check-in ever so often, and we're going to use this opportunity for you to ask questions, which Nicole will facilitate. Okay, so let's keep going. Thank you for your responses. Can you believe how far we have come with what used to be the keyboard? The image that you're looking at right now is not even the earliest version, but
Pamela Jo, you're actually not sharing your screen right now.
Oh, I'm not?
No.
What are you seeing?
We're just seeing each other's faces right now.
Oh, no. All right, let's try that again. Screen 2, share.
There we go.
You got it now? That's so strange.
Yeah.
So you weren't seeing my nice little friendly face guy? You didn't see all my little pictures? Let me just run through them right quick again. Welcome. Let's do this again. Take 2. I'm so happy you're here. All right, this is what I was talking about with my Twitter feed and my message that I try to get out to the world. All we need is love, and I'm forever going to be singing that wherever I go. And then here we go, our little smiley face guys that you're going to see throughout this presentation as we do little check-ins ever so often, all right? Here is the image I was just talking about. Can you believe this? Where we've come with the keyboard, from the beginning of time when it first got started, back in the 1700s when there was a design and a patent, and then we had Remington. And I know there was this electric because up to about 10, 11, 12 years ago, I was using Selectric in the library system to do library cards. It's not been that long that we've been tick, 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 tick. And then can you believe Microsoft is 46 years old? And Apple, that everybody talks about, is 45 years old. But look who's the baby. on the block? Google. Google is only 22 years old and has actually, in the midst of many other platforms out there, has taken off by storm in terms of how it's taken over the world of um, um, providing platforms and software that we're able to use as a community of educators. So I thought it was just so interesting for us to look back and see just how far we've come from when we were using these keyboards to now we're all on laptops and Chromebooks. So my goal today is to share some tips on how to utilize Google. Hi, Homa, and how to utilize Google in adult ESOL classes to up-level the digital literacy skills of our learners. And I want to inspire you before you leave here to ask and answer two questions. Are there like two applications that I see today that I know that I can implement right away? I've never thought of them. I've never used them. Is there two that I can use? And exactly when will I implement? Because when we put a date on something, it increases the probability that we will do it. So those are the two questions that I want to really ignite you to ask yourself by the end of this presentation, after I have shown you a few things that I use in my classroom. And I'm happy to welcome one of my learners who's on here today. And of course, I can't go anywhere without my quotes and my inspiration. All labor, and this is a kudos to you, adult educators, to you, adult ed staff that provides all of this support. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. And that's what we do. That's what we've proven over this last year, that we're committed to this and we're going to give it our best shot. We're going to take that pivot and learn what we need to learn and provide our learners with excellent service. And then my other thing is for you too, because guess what? I don't want to do all the talking today because the smartest person in this room is the room. All right. So I'm just here to facilitate and pull stuff out of your bank of knowledge, just like we do with our learners. So the topic mentioned integrated education and training. This is an elephant-friendly session. So let's talk about that for just a second as we proceed. Integrated education and training, what comes to mind when you hear that word? Go ahead and put it in the chat for me. What comes to mind when you hear integrated education and training, or IET? Go ahead and stick your comments in the chat for me. And if you could read those out for me, please, Nicole.
Yeah.
Charlene.
Yeah, we have work skills, a word that it doesn't look like it's repeatable. And then Nancy says that she's never heard it before.
Okay. Thank you for that feedback. Well, okay, let's talk about it just for a second. I'm not going to stay here because we do want to get to our Google tools. Well, integrated and education and training is big talk right now at the state of Florida and in fact, nationally, and it really is not new. This is the initiative where there is a greater effort to prepare our adult learners with the skills that are necessary for them to be successful in a career or on a job until they can get into their career. So the premise of integrated education and training is that one of the models is that at the same time we're teaching the academic and basic skills, we also should be incorporating or targeting technical skills that are found in occupations or careers as identified by the learner, and workplace preparation skills, which you're going to see that we already teach that as we're doing our lessons. So integrated education and training in its purest form is really targeting careers and getting our learners into these career clusters that they identify. The 17 clusters, if there are programs being formed right now that are targeting specific clusters so that learners can learn and go right into their field of interest. Now, how does that impact the regular adult ed ESOL program? Because it's a little bit different. And here is some of the workforce preparation activities that are going to be needed as we are practicing integrated education and training in its pure form or in another form where we're going to talk about contextualization. So the workforce activities, and I mentioned that we're doing some of this already, includes critical thinking skills, the basic academic skills, digital literacy skills, which we're going to touch on, which is our topic today, self-management, utilizing resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what's coming down from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act that's saying now versus just training for survival, we are teaching for thriving and economic stability and success in our ESOL classroom. So our version of contextualization has kind of been upgraded to now be, let's make sure that we're giving the learners what they need so when they get into their jobs and their careers, they can thrive in those areas. And that's essentially what IET, or Integrated Education and Training, is doing for our learners. All right? Digital literacy. And this is me just getting through some of the vocabulary and words that we're going to encounter as we go along. But our lesson today is about digital literacy, or our session today is about digital literacy. So here's the definition by Cornell. It's the ability to find, evaluate, utilize, share, and create content using information technologies. Okay, now earlier I talked about Microsoft and I talked about Apple, and I talked about there being many other types of technology that can be used in our classrooms. But today, the technology that we're taking a look at is Google. And why are we doing that? Because it's free. All right. So again, because we're so standards driven, because we're data driven, because we are preparing our learners for assessments that are standards based, we always want to refer to the standards or point back to the standards. And so here I have a snippet of the Florida DOE digital literacy standard, which if we look at DL.01, develop basic keyboarding and numerical keypad skills. Isn't it something that we're not using that old typewriter that we saw from the 16, 18, 1900s, that we're now using laptops? Awesome access, easier access to these keyboarding and numerical keypad skills. Provide variety of digital documents, research papers. I'm not going to read this slide because I know you're well able to do that, but this gives you an idea of what the standards are according to the Florida Department of Education for digital literacy that we should be keeping in mind as we're planning our lessons and as we're delivering our lessons. All right. So far we have to keep in mind our learners, the careers and occupations that we're preparing them to be successful in those areas, but we're also keeping in mind these standards that are digital literacy standards. And of course, if in your county you use the CASAS assessment, and I know BEST is also approved for Florida, forgive me, I don't have the BEST competencies on here, but if you're using CASAS, what we're doing is also aligned to the CASAS competencies. So if you were to look at all of our benchmarks, frameworks, standards, competencies, everything touches on technology. Everything touches on preparing the learners. And 2020 has shown us now more than ever how critical it is for us to be doing so. So here are some of the CASAS competencies that talks about workplace tools and technologies. All right. Content area 4, which is the content area for employment. And I'll leave that there for just a second. Demonstrate use of business machines, tools, equipment, etc. So many businesses pivoted to online. So many businesses pivoted to delivery, had to pivot to delivery, and all of them had to get to using computers. They were forced. It was a forced thing. So of course we have to force our learners. And I think this is the last one. I'm not trying to punish you or anything. I'm just trying to make it really clear that the standards are demanding this as well. And this is actually a look at the CCR standards, which is on the website is called ABE Skills Now, and the ELPS, which also can show you that there's a demand for our students to really bring up those digital literacy skills. If they have to research, they have to go online to do so. And so we have to be the ones who teach them at this point how to do so, from a basic level to an advanced level. So all of these slides were just showing us how the standards connect to digital literacy skills development. Now, I did mention this word earlier on with reference to integrated education and training. And here it is again with a layman's definition, because there is a WIOA definition, but just to, I like to keep it simple. But contextualization is just simply connecting instruction to work, career, and technical concepts to help adult students prepare for the next steps in their lives. It's as simple as that. Okay, so connecting instruction. We contextualized before by connecting our instruction to the content areas, community resources, consumer economics, basic communication, math, health. We were contextualizing before using those subject areas or topics. Now our contextualization is, how can you connect all of that to work, career, and technical concepts that will help the learner to take that lesson and go right into the workplace and be able to utilize it, which means it will be relevant, which means that it will be easier to retain for them, our English learners, to retain. All right. So who are our adult learners? We see them here right now. Actually, we're seeing them online on a computer screen. But essentially, we want to see them on the right. We want to see them where they see themselves. We want to see them as their goals are when they come into our program. Every single one of our learners come into a program with a goal. And we see them as wanting to learn English, but in their minds, they need a job. They need to help their kid with homework. They need skills. And so as we're looking at our learners, we see them here, but we have to also see them where they see themselves. So how do we do that? We have to get some information. And now I'm getting into Google. Oh, I had a check-in, and I'm hoping that I can still get some thumbs up so far, because that was a lot of talk and information. So let me see how you are already. All right, Emily. Thank you, Emily. I see a thumbs up. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Marissa. Oh, hi, Marissa. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the thumbs up. All right, so that was a lot of information just to establish the point that the things that we're doing now, we're always in the standards. We're always there, but now they've taken a step to the front. All right, let's keep going. All right. Whoops, whoops. Sorry. This was taken directly from the Google website. That was fun with the mouse. See, digital literacy is ongoing. Google has a desire to make life easier with a little help from their products. I appreciate that from Google. Thank you. But that's their mission, one of their goals. They want to make life easier. I want to make life easier. So I just thought that was great to point out on what Google is and what their goal is and their mission is. All right. Now, Google is a cloud-based platform, meaning that you can access it wherever you are. I can do work right here at home. I can go sit out in Starbucks and pull up my Google account, and I can continue my work there. I can go into the office and continue my work there. It's cloud-based, so you can access it wherever you are. It's also free. Now, I want by a show of hands to see how many of you already have a Google account, because another thing I want to establish is that the things that I'm showing you, thank you, Nancy, the things that I'm showing you, thank you, Rosalind, are going to be doable for the most part on a personal Google account. But thank you, Shanice. But I'm also coming, thank you, Marissa. I'm also coming from the perspective of the Google Workspace for Education. All right, it was called Google Suite, and they recently changed the name to Google Workspace for Education. So we can use this on Google personal account, and we can also use it on Google Workspace for Education. Remember, it's cloud-based, and it's a suite of products. And we need to have a Google account in order to build what I'm going to show you, but not necessarily to use what I'm going to show you, okay? Let's continue. I'm not going to spend any time on this. I think you got the point just from me going over all of the standards, from pulling them from everywhere. But as the only thing I want to bring your attention to with this is that as we go from this point on, I want you to remember Bloom's taxonomy and everything we do. And I want you to be able to tell me or comment in the chat, this is low-level remembering. This is, wow, they're creating here, or, ooh, that requires some analyzing. So I want you to keep Bloom's in mind as we go through and examine some of these products. All right, so earlier on, I showed you the picture and I talked about your adult learners and how in order to see where they are, like they see where they're going, we see them right here, but we need to be able to see where they see themselves. And I said, well, how do we do that? One thing that I utilize to get to know my learners, which I think is the number one most important thing within the first 3 weeks of a class session, is I use Google Forms and I ask the learners to tell me a little bit about themselves. And in telling me a little bit about themselves, one of the things I want to know is their career goal. I know you want to learn English, but more than that, why do you want to learn English? What do you do now? What do you want to do later after you build your English proficiency? Getting to know your learners. So important, because in getting to know your learners, that's the beginning of building community. That's the beginning of being able to deliver relevant lessons. That's the beginning of being able to invite your learners in to participate in the activities, because now that you know what they want to do, you can be very intentional about integrating that knowledge into everything you say or whatever you say. Okay, so this is a form that I have that I give to my students within the first 3 weeks of class just to get to know them. And here's some of the responses. All right, so here they'll tell me, this is what I do now, but here's what I want to do. So one of my learners, they're in fast food right now, but really they're professionally from their country, they're an esthetician and they want to go back to being an esthetician. Okay, so now when I see her, I don't see fast food worker, I see esthetician. So if I'm talking anything to do with esthetician, guess who I'm talking to? Guess who I'm pulling into the conversation? My other learner right now, she drives and repairs clothes, but she's an anthropologist and she wants to be an anthropologist in this country. So I see her as an anthropologist. I see my home health aide student as a home health. I see my pilot as a pilot. And I see my last worker, my last student worker wants to go into digital marketing. So I see them in digital marketing. So now this is where the contextualization comes in. Now at this point, I want to make that distinction between a straight up pure IET and contextualization, because IET is more for technical colleges that have established technical courses that students can register and they're going directly into that course because that system is set up for that. But for the rest of us who have learners in our classrooms that have varying career goals, this is where contextualization comes into play, because this is where now when you're delivering a certain lesson that applies to that learner, you can be more intentional about including that technical language for that learner so that they can have that skill. All right, so that's just an example of the use of the Google Forms. Now, my next example is Google Sheets, okay? And this is actually the Google form, and I'm looking at the page that shows me the responses. So right now I'm gonna let me go to the live form. And Nicole, when I go to this, please let me know if you're seeing that. All right, can you see that? Is everyone seeing the form? This is a live form, okay. Yeah. So this is what the live form looks like from the picture that I just showed you. And these are the questions that the learners answer. Okay, and I happen to use an image from the Burlington English resource because that's what we use. But these are the questions that I ask, including, you know, what technology are you using, so that, again, I can better serve the learner. And who doesn't want to celebrate birthdays? Right? Because we're building community. So I get some critical piece of information about career goals to inform my contextualization, but I also have other information that I use to build community and really connect with my learners. Okay, so that's an example of tell me a little bit about yourself. Let me ask you this. Does that question sound familiar? Please tell me a little bit about yourself. Does that question sound familiar? And if it does, let me know. You can open your mic and let me know, or you can put it in the chat. Does that question sound familiar? What do we have? I see the chat blinking. Do we have anything, Nicole? Please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yes, we have job interview.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Thank you very much, Nicole. Yes, that was very intentional. Immediately exposing the learner to language specific to a job interview is preparing them contextually for such a situation for when we start practicing job interviews. So they will already be familiar with, please tell me a little bit about yourself, just from my getting to know you survey. All right. Another example of a form here I think I have is an end of unit test. An end of unit test. Now, feedback for adult learners is critical. So I like Google Form because when the learners complete the Google Form, they can immediately see how well they did. But not only that, not only do they see how well they did, but as a parent, I remember that when we transitioned to online, the district was sending me surveys. And guess what the surveys were in? Google Form. Can you imagine an ESOL learner that has never seen that before, but they have a child in K-12 and the district is sending a survey in Google Form or in any other platform? They're not going to know what to do with it, right? So in using these applications in the classroom, we are upskilling and empowering our learners for things that are going to be happening in real life, and that's where the relevance comes in. So when we expose our learners to clicking to get their answers or dropping down to select an option, we are preparing them. Not only do they have to use the mouse and the keyboard and everything, but they're now prepared to respond to a questionnaire, a survey, or a form. Okay? Similarly, that transfers to a job application online. Okay? All right, so that's another example of a form. And now I am going to put this in the chat because I want you, see it says FLC practice copy. I want you to get an opportunity to complete this form. And notice how I'm sending this form. I'm hitting send, I'm clicking on the link, I'm copying the URL, and I'm going to drop it in the chat, okay? And I want you to take just a minute to complete this form because I'm going to use what you do to show you Google Sheets. All right, there's the link. Go ahead and take a minute and complete that form for me. Now, earlier I said you need a Google account in order to create the Google applications, but you don't need the Google account to complete the form, okay? As long as that form is shared to the public. Let me put that preface. All right, so once you complete the form, something's going to happen on my screen. So I'm waiting to see if it happens. And I literally, when I'm teaching my learners how to use the form, I literally have the form up in this way, in the edit mode, because I want them to see what's taking place. So let's see. Has anyone completed yet? Oh, wait, I said I would give you a minute. I'm so sorry. Wait time. All right, do you see what's happening on my screen? I can see that I have 2 responses already. So as I'm in my class and I'm doing this with my students, I'm like, yay, all right, 2 people completed. Thank you. I'm waiting now for everyone else. Let's see. Thank you for completing. 3 people completed. Thank you. 4 people completed. Thank you. All right. So I can see the completions that are taking place literally on this form as it's taking place. This is a best practice when you first start using anything, any application that's brand new. Do it together in the class, live, and show the impact so the learners can see what takes place when they're asked, after they're asked to complete an activity. So when the learners see this, I can go to responses and I can actually see, got it, thank you, Google. I can actually see a summary of what's taking place here. So Google gives me data. Happy May birthday, happy belated birthday, May person. All right, so it gives me data that I can work with right here. I can see how many participants have completed the questionnaire. And now I'm going to go to the next part of my slide. Well, before I go, let me take a step back because by now you're wondering, okay, I see that. I see that you showed me this form, but how did you create that form, right? How did you create that form? All right, I won't wait till later. I'll show you now. All right, so remember I said that you need a Google account, right? I'm gonna open up this tab and you should see a browser. Notice this browser right now is open in Yahoo, right? But I'm also logged into Google, so I'm gonna go to my Google application and you will see something different. You will see that now I have the Waffle or the app selector or the 9 dots. And the 9 dots gives me access to the Google applications. Okay? Once the 9 dot gives me access, once I click on the 9 dots and I have access to the Google applications, I can click on form. And it's gonna give me templates that I can start with, or I can start with a blank form and create whatever it is I want to create. So if you're just starting out, I'd say practice on the templates, review the templates, because then you can just change the information and use the information to create your unique form. And I actually had an activity where my learners got the opportunity to create a form. So similar to how I'm showing it to you right now, I showed it to them and they were able to log in and create a form, okay? Because they all have their student email, which is Google. All right, so that's how you create a form. In fact, that's exactly how you can do all the other applications. So let's continue. Are there any questions, Nicole, so far?
No questions so far.
All right, all right. So I just showed you Google Forms. I gave you two examples, one of tell me a little bit about yourself, and the other one was an assessment. It was a formative assessment. A formative assessment that gives me data where then I can use now to help to remediate with my learners. All right. So you just completed a form for me. So let me go back to that form and show you how exactly you can use Google Sheets. All right, so here's my example. 10 people, way to go, 10 people, thank you. All right, here we go. This little triangle, well, that's not a triangle. This little plus, the green plus on the responses page, once you click on that green plus, it's going to open up a spreadsheet. And this is just one way to get to a spreadsheet that I wanted to show you because I wanted to show you how valuable the Google form can be for you to gather or collect data. Okay, so I'm going to create this spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet now gives me information. Let me hide, I can hide a column when it stops. But the spreadsheet now gives me information on who has completed and other information that I can look to. So let me go to student data. Student data from my formative assessment. So this is my formative assessment, some responses from my students. And I've actually hidden their names. I've hidden the names, but what I have here is the scores, how many, what they got out of the total amount of questions. So now I can find the student who needs that extra help and help with that, help with the mastery of the pieces that they missed. This is Google Sheets, and this Google Sheet was generated from the Google form. Okay? But again, that's not the only way you can create a Google Sheet. I just did this because I wanted the data from the form. Again, when you go to the form and here are the questions, here are your responses. Once you click on response, you can click on the green plus and it will open up a Google Sheet with all the data pertaining to that form. So now if you're good with creating tables, you can create charts, you can create tables, you can create all kinds of things because now you have a Google Sheet. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at this. Those are all the responses. Some of it is writing. They had to write the responses. Some was multiple choice. So you get to practice reading and writing with this activity. Okay. So for Google Forms, we practice collecting information through the Google Forms. And in the Google Sheets, we can analyze that information or analyze that data. And we can teach the learner data, the technical word data. Okay, so that they get accustomed to hearing that. So the next Google application that I have in my slide is Google Drive. Now, Google Drive is formerly everything Google was called Google Docs, Google Docs, Google Docs. But Google Docs is really just one application. Google Drive is where it's like a library or it's like a warehouse that keeps all of the things that you do with your Google applications. When you have a personal Gmail, you have a Google Drive. If you have a personal Gmail right now, you have a Google Drive, okay? Remember, when you open a browser, if you have a Google account, as long as you see these 9 dots, if you click on the 9 dots, you can find Google Drive. And inside your Google Drive is going to be all things created under your account using any of these applications. So it's like a storage area. Okay, it's like a filing cabinet. That's a better word. It's a filing cabinet for your creations in Google using your applications. So here's my example here. The way I use it in my classroom is I literally create folders for each of my students. Okay, so you can see where some of them are level 3 and some of them are level 4. I've crossed out their names for privacy, but each of my learners have a folder in Google Drive, and I give them the link. I share the link to that folder with them. Okay, I share the link to that folder with them. And now what do they do with that? Remember the digital literacy, the FDOE digital literacy workplace preparation skills that says use information, understand systems? This is one way of teaching our learners how to use systems, okay? Because in that drive, they actually have their individual student performance report from the assessment that they can see where they got stuff correct, where they got stuff incorrect. And I actually go through that and teach what the numbers mean, what the content areas mean, so that at any given time, if they want to, they can go in and take a look at their, what's that word again? Data. Their data, right? They can go in and take a look at their performance data. And then another thing I did in this drive, and I'm so glad Homa is here because this is her drive. Another thing I do in this drive is I put the video. Remember the survey that told me that she's an anthropologist? There's the video that says anthropologist in her drive. So now she can listen to that and get some language because it describes what an anthropologist does. And that came from the My Next Move website. My Next Move. That's there for us to use as we're working with our learners through their career goals. Okay. And this is just a couple pieces of the information that are in each student drive, because if they get an award or a certificate, I put that in the student drive as well, so that they can print that out if they need to. But whatever awards they receive, it goes into their Google Drive. So that's just one way we can use Google Drive and expose it to our learners so that they can see how to be organized, how to create space to easily access stuff, and how to use information, how to analyze their own data, and also to store information that they can use for future practice. Okay? So that's Google Drive. I'm watching my time. Google Calendar. We didn't use that this much. That much. We didn't use this that much. However, in scheduling our Google Meet, I do use Google Calendar because Google Calendar helps me to keep my Google Meet recurring and helps me to keep the same code so that I have to keep creating a code. Also, and we're going to go to that next, in Google Classroom, this calendar is connected to the assignments that are given in Google Classroom, so that when I put a due date on the assignments, there's a calendar that the learner has access to that shows them when assignments are due. Okay, so on this particular one, there was one due on the 29th, and this is an April snapshot. Okay, so that's what the Google Calendar can do. Google Mail, again, our learners were getting emails. If they have children in school, they were getting emails from their schools. They're getting emails from their job. I remember doing a lesson on email once, and the learner came up to me and said, "Thank you, because I have an email right now and I don't know what to do with it." You know, so she came up and said, "Thank you," because now she knew the parts of an email. She knew how to greet, how to close, how to put the body. And so we can start doing that right now, training our learners how to create an email, how to use their email. Because sometimes you have to send a notice to your child's school. Sometimes you have to notify your teacher that you can't make it to school. So in this lesson, there's one learner that checked in to see if there was class. And then there's another, this was an activity where we were practicing CCing. Okay, so they were tasked with emailing a classmate and CCing the teacher. Okay, so it was very simple. This is a practice. And this learner said, Happy Day of Woman. All right. And remember, these are my levels 3 and 4. All right, so that was Google Mail. Again, Google Mail, same thing. In fact, all of us used Google if we have Google for Mail. So we're already using the mail because most of us, that's why we set up Google. But there's so much more. All right, so if your district uses Google, if your students have their Google account, or even regular account, we can start training them how to communicate using digital resources and how to structure sentences and how to create a formal email versus an informal email. Okay, all of those critical skills that are transferable to the workplace. Some of these I'm going right through, some of these you'll do hands-on, but Google Meet. Woohoo! Google Meet came to the rescue in 2020 for us because we weren't approved for Zoom, but we were approved for the Google products. So we transitioned to virtual remote teaching on Google Meet. Okay, so like I said, this is a schedule and a calendar where you can schedule your Google Meet. And then this is the entrance way to Google Meet. And of course, I had to pick the fun one. They just upgraded to create this fun background. But they're constantly upgrading their virtual conferencing platform to make, in response to feedback from the population, to make it more accessible and easier. All right. So this is Google Meet. And again, what are we training when we use Google Meet? When we use our breakout rooms in Zoom or Google Meet, we are practicing teamwork and collaboration, leadership skills if we assign leadership roles, right? Writing, listening, okay? But this, similar to the Google Forms, should be taught explicitly, okay? Once the learner gets in, we pull up the screen, show every single control. And I remember this lesson was a lesson where they went into breakout rooms and the sole purpose was for them to go in, talk about the breakout room and come in and report about their experience in the breakout room, just so they could learn Google Meet and Google Breakout Room, okay? So Waffle, that's what I call it. That's a very informal name. It's actually the Google App Selector, but I call it the Waffle, and it's an application on here, Google Meet. And we can start a new meeting just by using that, okay? Google Classroom. Again, understanding systems. This is college and career prep because, and something I forgot to mention about the Google Meet, sorry about that. There are many jobs now that are doing virtual interviews. So that's also something that we can practice on the Google Meet platform, doing virtual interviews, because that's now a thing. And I don't think it's ever going to go away now that we've transitioned to remote learning and all of these things have been discovered. Okay, so that's a plus. Now the Google Classroom is a learning management system. A lot of us know Canvas and Schoology and Edmodo, but Google Classroom is a learning management system. That this is where you can assign work or you can put notes and materials for the learners to access after class, because for language learners, repetition, repeat. So the more they can go back in and practice what happened in class, the more we're increasing the likelihood of retention, okay? So in the Google Classroom, we can put documents and activities. And in this example, I like to take notes in my class. So we're gonna go to Google Docs, but this is an example of Google Docs that I've added to my Google Classroom. And this is an example of notes from the class that I've added to my classroom. I like to, when the learners first come in at night, that we talk about what happened the night before. And I remember one night, a learner was absent the night before, and I asked the class, can someone please tell this learner what we did last night? And she promptly said, no, teacher, in Google Classroom, I read the notes, which I was like, what? Yay! When? It was exciting because she was like, no, I read the notes, you know? So that's what we want. We want that autonomy. We want that ownership. It's also self-management because this is asynchronous. Once you put stuff in Google Classroom, it becomes on their time, on their terms. So they can go in and interact with what you put, but it's on their time. So for a learner to go in, take initiative and do it, that's like self-management, which is one of those workplace preparation skills. All right. So I like to take notes in class. I like to do small talk, and my small talk is a little strange because I transcribe everything they say and turn around and use it as a role play. All right. So this is what this is right here. This is them talking and me transcribing, and then we turn around and we edit and they read through it, correct it as a role play, like the conversation again. So all of these things that happen are posted in their Google Classroom for those that couldn't make it to class to go in and see the notes, and for those that were in class to go back and review. So I think I have the classroom open. I do have to be, all right. This is what it looks like on a personal account, because yes, you have Classroom on a personal account as well. The only thing is you can't get your learners in on their school account, right? That's a safety issue. All right, but for you, if you want to go in and practice, another way to use Google Classroom is as a planning room. You can use Google Classroom as your personal planning room. You're the only one that use it, but you curate everything. You curate your lesson plans in there. If you have online resources that you want to use in class, curate them and put them all in your Google Classroom so you can quickly access those resources for when you're ready to use them in your class. Because if you're like me, every single day, Monday, Saturday to Sunday, Sunday through Saturday, oh, I could use that in class. Oh, I could use that in class. So you can grab whatever. If you're watching something on YouTube, you could grab it, put it in your Google Classroom. We call it our Google Teacher Planning Room at that point. Put all your stuff there. So that's another way to use it. So this is an example of one on a personal account. And then I also have the example, which I'm just going to quickly go here. All right, this is good because there are no names. It's only my name. So this is what my students' classroom look like. All right. And I post a lesson and I post a classwork here. I post links to different tools that they can use, our Google Meet link that they can use here. Okay. And again, the Waffle, Google Classroom, and just play around with it. Okay. But this is a learning management system that you can use again to deliver, to store your work that you've done that night and share it with the learners who were absent or who want to go back and review. We're going to get to Jamboard, but I can tell you that this Jamboard I just did on the 2nd in a class. And I went back the day after and the learner was in it. There was a learner inside that Jamboard. So that tells me that they're going back to review what we did. Okay. And you can see that. All right. So that's watching the time. Oh my goodness. Where does the time go? Google Docs. We already talked about it. It's just like Microsoft Word. It's a Word document that's in the cloud on Google. You treat it the same way, but these are examples of what you just saw in Google Classroom, because I take these docs and I put them in Google Classroom. So I think I do have an example here of what I was describing. And again, Google Applications and 9 Waffle, there it is. There's our conversation. And I tell you, here is what I love, and I'm going to show you this. So we're building this together. In class, we're building this together. And the share button is your friend, because you can share this with your learner in the link, just like I shared the form with you, and they can jump on and type right along with you, and there can be collaboration taking place in the Google Doc. But the thing that I absolutely love about Google Doc as a whiteboard is that we're taking notes as we're talking. This is our conversation throughout the class, our lessons. We work together to build out our question words. We work together to do that. But what I really love about Google Docs, you see all these images? All of these images are from just doing insert, image, search the web. So what a great way to support our language learners from the lower level all the way up, because visuals are always a great way for access to comprehension. So every time there is like a, oh, what is that? Oh, what is that, teacher? Go grab an image just by doing insert and search for the word and putting the image in. So for this one, we were joking about how fast, we're practicing how fast for the question words. And we ended up putting in a fast car as well as a boat. But all of these are built with the learner. As we're doing the class, I'm typing. It sounds like a lot, but I find that it's easier because they're seeing the words that they're saying. It's easier for them to understand because they can go back and read the words that they're saying. Okay? And then when we correct it together, they can see that as well. And then also this gets added to the Google Classroom. And let me show you right quick. I'm gonna go into my practice classroom here. This one's pretty old. And the way you add this is just click here, create, assignment, quiz, etc. So my Google form, I can also put here for them to answer, but I can do material and do add, and I just link the document inside the Google Classroom. Okay. And I know this is a lot of information. I'm trying not to go too deep because the fact is I want to just show you the potential, because there's so many tutorials available. If you see something you like, there are a ton of tutorials available. The important thing right now, remember two, you're gonna grab a hold of two, and then you can go and you can find, there's YouTube videos. As long as you find your two, you can go and find how to do it. You can practice, you can play around, you won't break anything. But the key is to say, ooh, I could really use that with my learners. That would really be helpful. Or I could use that with my learners. That would be helpful. Because I don't believe in using everything. It's too much. But if you can grab a hold of your two, or you use two this time and next time you use a different two, or even one, then that's key, because we don't want to make it overwhelming for the learners either. All right. So that is how I put my Google Docs inside of my Google Classroom. I put Google Forms. If you're familiar with Flipgrid, I put Flipgrid links in. Whatever material you want your learners to access in the LMS, you can add that there. And for Google Docs, I use it as a whiteboard so that when they come in and we're having our small talk conversation, I am typing. And one night I lost my voice and I said, students, you're the teacher tonight. And guess what? They were typing in that Google Doc. Another win, right? They were in there typing in that Google Doc, doing their small talk and typing. I was like, oh. So I turned it over, and that's how you evidence learning. When you can turn it over to the learner for them to be the teacher, that's evidence of learning. If I can turn it over to the learner to say, okay, please show your classmates how you attached your assignment in the Google Classroom. Please show your classmates how you added your picture in the Google Classroom. And you turn it over so that they share their screen, then you are really evidencing learning. Okay, so that's our goal. We always want to be able to turn it over to the learners so that they can do it. All right, so Google Slides, watching the time. Google Slides. PowerPoint, if you're familiar with it. This is another thing. A lot of teachers use this for whiteboard as well. I love to use the Google Docs. A lot of teachers use Google Slides. I use Google Slides just when I want to create certain presentations, but it's also great as a whiteboard, okay? Again, you build your lesson in here, you present your lesson here, you can attach this to your Google Classroom or the learning management system so that the students can go back and view it. And I believe I have a slide example here. This was a week 1, and this is how I use Google Slide. I think it's quickly that says I like to say you have 3 weeks to win it. So within the first 3 weeks, again, making that connection, all right, building that community. So this is a slide that I love to use over and over again because it's about introducing self. So I present the slide, we go over key vocabulary, which ones don't you know? We go over the ones you don't, which ones do you know? Which ones don't you know? We go over explicitly teaching vocabulary. And then it's about introducing yourself. So of course, as a teacher, you know you have to model. We explain why it's important to introduce yourself. Introducing yourself is applicable across the board, at work, at church, at home, not home, but everywhere. So I start with me, I introduce myself. I'm like, oh, what flag is this? That's my flag. It's a Jamaican flag. And then I continue and I have sentence frames and I introduce myself, right? But the fun part is, and then I go through the frames to make sure all the key vocabularies are understood. Now the fun part is what comes next. All right, so what flag is this? I've modeled what I want. And then I go and I show a flag because I've gotten the information. I got the data from my coordinator and I want to know where my students are from. They're not expecting this. So the flag comes and it's like, oh, that's my flag. And now it's their turn to introduce themselves. Okay. And then the extension of this is saying, hi, nice to meet you. And then another extension is, this is, she is from. Okay. So that's an extension. So that's just an example of how I use slides the first week of school to as an introductory activity with the flags, but then I keep going. And remember the table where I said you can get data? You can also embed your Google Sheets data into slides. So now that becomes a part of the conversation because once when I get to know my students where they're from, I have more data here that I can use now to introduce them to tables and how to interpret tables, how to interpret charts. Okay, so I like to embed that inside of my Google Slides. All right, let's keep going. So that's just one way of using Google Slides. I'm sure you guys have a lot of other ways. I hope you guys are sharing how you do things in the chat if you're familiar with any of these resources, because remember, the smartest person in the room is the room. All right, so you have banks of knowledge, so be sure to be sharing with your colleagues if there's anything here that's familiar. All right, Google Sites, oh my goodness. Remember that student that wanted to be a digital marketing? Google Sites is a great way to now bring our students up the ladder when it comes to Bloom's taxonomy. I did not put the skill here, but can somebody just tell me what level or what skill or what competency a student who gets to create a site or gets to collaborate in building a site, what kind of skill is that? What are they building? When you think of what we shared earlier on. Anyone?
We have a couple of responses here in the chat. We have create, apply, access info.
Exactly. You guys are rock stars. Yes, exactly. Now we've taken them up the ladder to the create part. And Google Sites is, I can't say enough about it, how easy it is. for our learners to use, okay? So these are examples of sites that I've built over the years. Two of them are professional, like this is the TESOL organization site, right? This is a portfolio. I created a site that's like my portfolio. All right, so students can create an online portfolio where they can put resume for job hunting, et cetera, et cetera. But Google Sites, again, the 9 dots, Google App Selector, and you click on the 9 dots, and here it is. Where is it? I promise you it's here, because that one's built on a personal site, but it will be there. You may have to actually go inside of the Google Drive. Let's try it that route. Let's go Google Drive, because you can also access your apps in the Google Drive. So once you enter Google Drive, you can do new. It's still spinning. There you go, and do more, and there is Google Sites. And once you click on Google Sites, it creates what I like to call a newborn baby site. It has nothing. It's a newbie. And then you just dress it up. You dress it up, and there are templates that you can use. But what a fun way to together, along with your learners, start right here and together build out that site. Here's the example of what we did in our classroom. And on this page, the page that I'm featuring goes back to contextualization, because in this example, the learners have now provided, some of them directly came in and put the pictures, but they put pictures that pertain to, remember we talked about contextualization? This is who they are. In our class, they're English learners, but in real life, this is who they are. They're entrepreneurs. They own this business, right? They're anthropologists. Okay, they're estheticians. So on each of their pages, they will have a video again of what they do that they can use for exposure to the language. But now it's personal, because now there's artifacts that has to do directly with them that they can put. So this is a site that we created in our class last term. And not only does it help with the showcasing the career, one of my favorite activity was when we had the cultural activity where they went on and they put images from their home country. So similar to the flag, now they get to put their favorite foods or their favorite places in their country. And now at the end, this is like a project. At the end of the term, our conversation now is them sharing. They share with each other. And then they get, my favorite part was the discovery of the similarities. Oh, we have that too. Oh, we do that, but it's called this. Oh, that looks like this. Oh, okay. So yes, so being able to give them that autonomy so that they can get exposed to this and be able to do this is just, it's great just to see the responses and the reactions and oh, now I can do this in my field, or I can write this in my field. I'm able to do this in my field. All right, so that's the Google Sites and the possibilities. Jamboard, and we have 5 minutes. Jamboard. Jamboard is an amazing tool for collaboration. All of these tools are amazing for collaboration because it's just a matter of hitting the share button and giving the students the opportunity to jump on and work with you. That website that you saw, all of the learners have edit rights to that website. So they can go in and type and do whatever if they want to, okay? So just being able to give them the autonomy by sharing sharing the resource with them so that they can go in and practice is collaboration, teamwork, and then they get to share out and they get to share out what they have done with their colleagues. All right. So for Jamboard, these again are examples of what I did with Jamboard. And I'm going to put a link in the chat. Let's see. I'm going to put a link in the chat. I'm actually going to put 3 links in the chat so you can do this with me while I'm doing this. And again, Jamboard, depending on the way you share it, anyone can access, anyone can participate. So I'm putting 3 different links in the chat, and you can jump on one of those links and jump into a Jamboard. And let's talk about Jamboard for a second, because this is really a great tool for interaction and engagement and collaboration. And while you jump on that jam, these 3 are jams that are customized because I could change the backgrounds, but that we used in class for different things. As you can see, this 3rd one is really my favorite, and I'll show you why. All right, so these are things that we get to do together at the same time. They jump in, they type once I teach them, but I have the resource inside. I screenshot. This is after we've done the work. I screenshot this in so it can be a part of the archive that we put in the Google Classroom for them to come in and review. But again, it's interactive, and they come in and they can type and be a part of the activity, okay? Also, let's see this one. This one again, I mentioned that this was just done this week. And there she is. She's in here. And this, I was teaching her how to do Jamboard. So it was her very first time learning how to interact with the platform. So she learned the sticky notes. I told her to write the different tools on the sticky notes, how to add in a shape, and so on and so forth. And then we proceeded with random vocabulary that she had to name, and using sentences, we proceeded to the rest of the work that they had to work into the Burlington, which is what we use in our county. So this is also another great way, a great whiteboard to add your lessons, add pictures, and have the students come in and participate in the activity so that it's interactive and it's not just a dumping of words, but they get to come in and participate as well. So here I was showing her things. What's this? And she typed bar of soap and toothbrush, and some of it I said, what's similar, what doesn't belong? And she was able to make the association and see that some of it is personal care and one is for painting the house, that kind of thing. So you get to do visuals, you can bring images, etc. So I'm going to jump over to the jam because I know you must be on there right now. I want to see if anyone is, I want to see what's going on over there, if you're there. And while we're doing this, if you have any questions, this is a great time because I cannot believe the time went by so fast. All right, I see some people in jam number 1.
We do have one quick, I do want to mention something. We are at time. So for those of you who have to leave for any reason, I mean, please go ahead and do so. I will be following up this webinar with the materials that Pamela Jo mentioned today, and also the survey. Please fill out the survey when you get that. If you would like to stay on to, so Pamela Jo can kind of show Jamboard a little bit and ask some more questions, we'd welcome you to stay. So We do have a question here about Google Drive.
Okay.
So how do you get or assign individual links to each folder on the Google Drive?
Okay. All right, let me go over so I can show you. I'm seeing that maybe I have the first link is not. Okay, so let's go to Google Drive. Here we go. Great question. At this point, my computer is protesting because it's like I have 10 million links, things open. So let me close this one. All right, so when you're like, let me describe that to you so that we don't have as much lag time. When you're in the Google Drive and you're actually at the folder, at the top there you can see like a little people icon that you can click on and add people to that icon. So let me go. Oh, I have some activity. Let me go in and show you because it's better if I show you. Great question. So Drive. All right, so let me go to, let's go to, all right, here, do you see where you see people right here? You can actually click on there and it allows you to add people to that drive. Okay. I hope that helps. You can click here and it allows you, and it gives you the level of restriction you can put on the drive as well. All right, so let me go like to iWork. If I come here to iWork, you can see like images of people, so I can actually add people to this drive to collaborate. I hope that answers the question.
And that's the only question we have.
Okay, all right, great. So if people want to hang around, I'll be happy to go through a couple of Jamboard features. And then also, let's take a look at see what's going on in Jamboard. Let me share this one. Hold on. I got this. Grab this. There you go. Come on over here. There you go. Oh boy. Doesn't want to go over. It's like you don't have any room over there for me. Why are you bringing me over here? All right. So I see about 11 people in Jam 2. There we go. Jam 2. Here we go. So you can see how many people are in here. If we live life to the fullest, we don't actually need forever. I love that. Blue is the color of my true love's eyes. Oh, I love that. All right, so I see some of you have been in here and doing some stuff already, but what I wanted to point out to you is, yes, this is Jamboard, and right now this Jamboard has 20 frames. There are 20 frames in this Jamboard. So if you can, what I like to do call land grab, if you can grab one of those that has like an adapted KWL chart to talk about what you didn't know, what you now know, and one question that you still have, that would be great, because this is just an example of how you can put like an exit ticket on a jam and have your learners come in. And I always tell them, just use that scroll button, the scroll button that's at the top, the arrow that goes left and right. Scroll until no one, you notice that no one is on the frame. And then on that frame, put your name. And you can do so using a pen, the tools that are on the left, a pen, or a sticky note, or the text box. Okay? So I can grab a sticky note and go, Pamela Joe, and hit save. And now this frame is mine. So I can put my answers here. So I have used this activity for when I group my learners. Like, I have learners that come from similar countries, and I may group them because the activity has to do, for example, an actual activity was comparing educational systems. So in that case, I had a Venn diagram. And in that case, I actually had the flags on each of the frame, like a flag from each of the countries that represented. And so their activity was to scroll through. So scroll through is technical language that I teach. Locating the arrow and going left and right, that's a part of learning how to navigate a digital platform. So I teach them that as well. Scroll down, go left and right, click, double click. All of those are a part of the lesson when it comes to using all of this technology, so that they're getting that language that they will be able to use when they are communicating about the technology. All right. So let me find out. Okay, here I see how to use many of the Google application. What didn't you know? Oh, great. How to use Jam. Oh, nice. Okay, Javonda, thank you for sharing. So this is the other really neat things. Notice that I can see who is in the platform. Now, right now you're coming up as anonymous, very interesting animals. That's what Google chose to do. However, if your learners are logging on with their students log on, you can actually see the names. And as the person is typing, like you see right here, you can see who is typing, even if they don't, you don't look at the name at the moment. So you can see who is on the Jamboard. You can see how many, and you can scroll through and see who is where. All right. Wonderful. I know, right? It's daunting at first. That's why I say choose two. Choose two and grab a hold of those two and just try to practice those. And and just start doing it, because that's the only way to learn it, when you start doing it. Once you start doing it and practicing it and do it with the learners, you will get it. Now, I do have a special guest on the with us today, and one of my students is here, and she was going to talk about what she learned in technology. And unfortunately, I didn't get her recording in time, so I don't know if we have time for her to say something, but Homa, are you still there? Nicole, is it okay if she says something?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, okay, because she's one of my
Yes,
students, so
yes,
she's gone to
yes,
another level
teacher
now.
had.
So go ahead, Homa.
Okay, excuse me. Uh, would you please ask again, teacher? Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead and just say what your experience was with the these, like the Jamboard and the
Ah,
website, and all the technology that you learned in class, and how it will help
yes,
you
yes, it's
in your
very nice.
field.
Thank you. Thank you. I am very happy because of in your conference. I am in your conference. It's very nice and interesting for me. And uh, I won't say my experience when I oh when I go went to the class English class the first. I was very worried about that, but uh, teacher Pamela pushed me and the other student, and she gave me self-confidence, and I believe she is the best teacher in my life. And we uh, uh, we learned a lot of things from Miss Pamela about skills in language English, speaking, reading, listening, writing, and behind of that, she taught to me a lot of things about Google's programs, uh, Google Sheets, Google Drive, Google Site, Google Form, and email, and uh, there is, I believe, there is that program is very important for new immigrants because it cause improve abilities and improve soft skills and hard skills, and this is good for future for immigrants because they can get a better job and get a situation, a better situation. And I really appreciate to Miss Pamela and her groups in ESOL, and I appreciated for push the immigrants, and they try and they try push all of us to situation better, and this is very helpful and very humanity, and I thank you about that. Thank you, teacher.
Oh, thank you, Homa. Wow.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're
uh,
welcome. Thank you too for sharing. So, she went ahead and went to the next level, so I no longer have her, but she is from Iran. And so, one of those websites with the beautiful, food and everything, it was very interesting to learn about her culture and to watch her grow in her digital literacy skills, as well as the other students. So, thank you for coming and sharing that testimonial, Homa. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the Jamboard and people are having a lot of fun on here, as you can see on the screen on two. How to use Google applications. Welcome all pets. There are many different applications and many opportunities to incorporate. Will I be able to act? Yes, I learned why Google can be a fascinating tool. Excellent collaboration. Very good. Now, in closing, if there are no more questions, in closing, I just want to say I did mention in the title that, or in the description, that there are many job demands right now, a lot of industries. And I think that we are positioning our learners for that question on the interview, the question on the interview that says, what technology skills do you have? What are your skills when it comes to technology? That, in addition to tell me about yourself, that's another question that always comes up. So I think that it's really important that we're able, there's hardly any industry right now, from fast food all the way up, where employees don't have to use some form of technology to get their job done. So we have to reduce that effective filter when it comes to technology, reduce that fear, and just empower our learners so that they can see that they can do this, and see, like Homa says, how it will benefit them when they get ready to get a job. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. If Are there any other questions? I'm so sorry that I ran over, and I hope it wasn't overwhelming. Just grab two. And I'm going to send a one pager with links to tutorial directly from the Google site, because I think it's the best thing coming from them. And then I wish I could hear back from you how it goes.
All right, well, thank you so much, Pamela, and thank you all for joining us today. Like I said before, I'll be sending around all these the resource list that Pamela will send me, and also the presentation. This is also recorded, so you can see it. Well, I'll send you the recording of this session next week as well. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nicole. And thank you, Homa.
Excuse me, can
Bye.
I